Rich John Witt here with another Make the Right Moves business coaching video with Silver Moon Photography Studio owner Linda Joseph. And we're all about helping business owners make the right moves so they can see better results faster. Linda needs a good assistant. This is a very common occurrence in small business owners. The first time-saving opportunity for virtually every business owner is to bring on an assistant so the owner can spend more time on high-value tasks. We're going to discuss the mistakes curve as it relates to training a new assistant. Pay special attention to the failure to learn curve and the good decisions curve. I'll be back in a bit to walk through Linda's application of the principle.
Yes.
And when we got together earlier, we talked about what it is to be a small business owner, and for you, and you're growing, your business is growing.
Yes.
Right? And one of the challenges that you mentioned is, hiring. How do I get some help?
Yes. And I now have a couple of resources. UC Irvine I will be working with them. They've got a criteria for doing internship programs. So at the beginning of the year, that's where I'm going, because I desperately need post-production help and sometimes assistance helping me out on shoots.
Okay. All right. So let's show them the mistakes curve. Right? Now, the mistakes curve, this is what happens after you've hired somebody, right? So there is a challenge to hire the right person, right?
Right.
But once you hire somebody, and this is where I see people make errors all the time, right? Business owners, they struggle with it. And so if you understand the mistakes curve, it makes you a lot more comfortable with sort of this process, the training process and the learning process that a new employee has, right? So here's the curve. It starts out with an X and a Y axis. So the bottom is volume and the Y axis is time, right?
Okay.
And it's just like most curves, right? But in the beginning, what we understand is that the volume of mistakes made, anytime you learn something new, the volume of mistakes is great.
Right.
Depending on the complexity, it could be really great,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But over time, right, because we learn from our mistakes, we get a little bit better and we move to a position of proficiency, right? Eventually we make fewer and fewer mistakes, right? This is the natural learning curve, right? And as long as we're on this curve, we're fine, right? People are going to make mistakes early. Now, there are ways to adjust this curve, right? You can make this curve not quite so wide or maybe not quite so tall. And this is where education, things like books, reading, videos, workshops, seminars, a coach, all of these things are designed to reduce that curve. Or you can just accept the curve that's there today.
Right.
Now, one of the other things that designs that helps affect that curve is when you have a good solid process, right?
Yes.
That they say, hey, take steps 1 to this is the process that you use, and typically it's written down, right? So somebody could follow it, and it's not just spoken, right? Because there's lots of places for confusion in the spoken word. So if we have a really tight process, we can make that curve be a little bit smaller, right?
Yes.
But the key here is, as long as you're on this curve, this is nature's learning curve. If you're on this curve, it's the oldest learning tool in the history of mankind. It's called trial and error. You will get there, right? And then your job as the business owner bringing somebody new on board is to figure out, how can I shorten this curve? How can I make this happen?
Yes.
So as long as you're here, you're good,
Yes.
right? But here's where people get trouble, right? They start looking at this curve over here. Now notice this curve here. This is the failure to learn curve, right?
Right.
And what happens here, and you notice these are two vertical lines, right? So this is somebody that's not learning from their mistakes.
Yes.
They're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We always do, but we have to learn from them. If we fail to learn from those mistakes, then we get on this vertical line, right? Now this is two parallel lines. Do two parallel lines ever merge?
No, never.
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 Ever.
Ever. Yep.
But I get business owners sit here and say, well, they're going to get it eventually. And they can't.
Right. Either you're doing something wrong or they're not right for the position.
Something's broken.
Yes.
Something's broken. Something's not working. And so you, as the business owner that's looking for this person, if they're on the natural learning curve, you're going down the right path. Feel comfortable that you're going down the right path. And you are on the lookout for this vertical line curve, because the sooner you see that, the faster is the time you say, look, switch, change, do something different, right? Another day, another week, another month, another year, nothing's going to get any better. You never get there, right? And I get business owners that just say, oh, well, that's just who they are. That's what it is. And they accept it. And in the long run, they don't get the performance that they're looking for from their new hire.
Right.
This is the mistakes curve. Then we take a look at the other side of this, which is called the good decisions curve, right? And so we have the same y-axis and the same x-axis, right? Time and volume.
Right.
But whenever you're learning something new, right, how many good decisions do you make? Not very many, right? Because you don't know any better, right?
Right.
So when we have a new employee or a new something, right, we don't want to give them very many decisions to make. We don't want to even give them the choice to make decisions, if
Right.
at all possible. If we could give them a scripted, take steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, again and again and again, to deliver the quality and results that you want, right? That's how we have to train somebody in the beginning.
That's how you get consistency.
That's how you get consistency,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Now, over time, right, they're going to get better, right? And once
Right.
they get the process dialed in, if they want to add some things, they say, hey, listen, we could do this, we could change that, we could make it better.
Right.
That's fine, but it's only after they understand the model and the process that you've built 100%,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because, and we have people that sit there and say, listen, you figure it out. Well, the problem, the way they figure it out is they're going to make mistakes. They've not done it before. They've not worked for you. They don't know how you think.
Now you've seen the mistakes curve and the good decisions curve. As a business owner, you have to be on extra special alert for the failure to learn curve. This curve is deadly. The second most important process for new, inexperienced employees is to limit their opportunities to make decisions. This is how you get consistency. And note Linda's idea for where to find talent. Internships are a great resource. Next, we're going to discuss how to apply this principle to training your new assistant. And Linda's going to share her previous hiring results.
So understanding that you're trying to do with bringing a new person on board to help you, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I've already made the mistake of trying to bring somebody on thinking they knew what they were doing and they don't. So it's you have to go right.
Does
down
this
the line.
resonate with some of the
Oh my
things you've
gosh,
experienced?
Totally.
Yeah.
So Linda made the mistake of thinking that the person she was hiring knew what they were doing. She didn't evaluate the talent very effectively, and this is a major issue. The hiring and firing process is painful. It wastes time and money, and then you get to do it all over again. Now listen to Linda's solution.
You have to. That's part of what I will be doing is writing out, like creating a manual of what they do in this, for say architectural work, what they do for headshot work, and then have them go point by point by point.
Okay.
Until they get it.
So you got to create
Yes.
the processes.
Right.
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 What's the first one you got to create?
First things first, it's important to understand the training steps. Now let's see what Linda has to say about policy.
When and how much I expect them to be there. If they say they're going to be there, they need to be there. Consistency and follow through
Okay.
with that.
Okay. So it's almost a behavior.
It's a behavior
Okay.
thing, right? Because I've had some interns who want to use their cell phones half of the time they're with me. That's ridiculous.
No, it doesn't work. They can't work when they're
No,
on the phone. right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can't. They can't check their texts. So forget that.
When you're here to work, work.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Linda's discussing workplace behaviors. These are really important. People get hired for skill and fired for attitude all the time. So now we can talk about production tasks.
So when it comes to your product and your post-production work, what's the
Yes.
first thing that you could use some help on?
Scripting out the workload, probably.
When you say scripting out the workload, what does that mean?
I'm not sure exactly how I should do it. I even was thinking about maybe a video and pointing, using the screen and showing them exactly how it's done. But I think written, maybe, and then a video or something.
So is this how to build a work plan for your project?
Yes.
So before we can even begin to talk about tasks, it's about planning. This is how you can schedule and manage your team. If you know what should happen and when, you can effectively manage workload. All right, now we're going to talk about tasks. And this is where a process manual is highly effective.
So what are some of the
Steps of it.
tasks that are associated with a project?
Well, to begin with, like for architecture, you go in, you have to select which images you're going to use for the client. Then you take them into Photo Raw, and you actually you have to do color corrections. You have to do graded. There are a lot of what do you call those tools that you actually have to do per image. But then you need to go into the
So are you looking for your assistant to actually do this work?
Right,
Okay.
right. And they actually need to correct for the lens aberrations and things like that. So there's a lot of steps.
Now for architectural tasks, Linda shares about selecting images, photo raw, color corrections, update images, lots of technical steps that need to be written down. And this is where a process manual can be really, really effective. So now we know the attitude and the behaviors we need and the tasks and the project plan. We know everything that needs to be accomplished. And now we can talk about what's the first project that we should have our new assistant work on.
So what are the first projects that you want them to work on and get good at?
Probably headshots.
Okay.
Because that's the most time consuming.
Okay.
Architecture is pretty straightforward and fairly easy. But the headshots are, and especially when we're dealing with older people who have more wrinkles.
Yeah. Well, we know those. We know who
Yeah,
those
I-
are,
we know.
and we're right there.
We are. I am. Yes.
So the first project type is headshots. And some of a headshot project is technical, and it can be covered in the manual. But there's an artistic component, headshots and wrinkles. This is where we need the assistant to come to Linda for guidance. This isn't the place for Linda's new assistant to make their own decisions. Let's see what Linda says about how she identifies the essence of a photo.
What that is. It's sort of like when you talked about discovering the essence of somebody, right?
Yes.
How do you do that?
You talk to them, and
Well-
you have to figure out who they are, what their story is, what's important to capture.
How do you know when you got it?
Well, it's actually in the when we're having the dialogue, or when we're talking and chatting or whatever, something will be said and I'll go, oh, we need to do that. In my own head I say, oh, we need to do that. And then we might brainstorm a little bit, so then that takes us to the next step.
So is there a little feeling that you get when you hit that spot?
Yes. Sometimes it just goes, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah, that's an exciting thing.
It is.
Right? You've
It
done
is.
this so many times
Yeah.
that you know what that is.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Now, as you probably could tell, defining the artistic components of a project or a task is really, really challenging. And this is why the artistic definition is the last of the tasks to be fully delegated. Now let's see what Linda identifies as her action items.
So we talked about a couple different action items for you, right? One of them was learning how to build a project plan,
Yes.
right? Having them build a project plan, here's all the components, right? And if they build a project plan, that would be really helpful, because you know what needs to be done and what all the tasks are and how long it's going to take.
Yes.
Right? And that's really very effective and very efficient.
Yeah.
Right? And then the second one is we said, hey, that's headshots is the process that we would work on
Right. Correct.
first.
Right, because that's the most time consuming, and I think it's the most difficult. So if they can get that, they can get anything.
Okay.
I swear.
Right?
Totally true.
Yeah. So if they build project plans and do headshots first, what's the third thing that you would have them work on?
If they've gotten everything right, I think we'd have a conversation and say, so now you've been doing this for this length of time, whatever it is. Do you have ideas or suggestions about how we could improve the workflow, or how we could do?
Okay, then we can engage them for
Right.
improvement, because we really
Right.
want them to contribute.
Right, exactly. And they're going to, maybe they've learned something that they can share with me, and it speeds up the whole process. And
Wouldn't that be nice?
oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. Totally amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now that you understand the mistakes curve and the good decisions curve, let's talk about action items to help you leverage this knowledge. Applying the knowledge is the only way to increase your skill level. Regardless of the role you need to fill, here are 3 valuable steps to making a better hire and training more effectively. Number 1, define the behaviors that are important for the role. Well, I can't tell you how many times new hires are based on knowledge, experience, and skills, and subsequently fired for attitude. You can train knowledge and skills. Attitude's much more difficult. Ideally, you're going to define these before you hire someone, but it has to be in the training as well. Detail-oriented or big picture, high energy, process-oriented, what level of quality, these are all critical to your business. Number 2, create a policies and procedures document. It doesn't have to be long. Timeliness, work times, break times, vacation times, all these things are important, critical for your business. Number 3, define a project plan that you can measure. What are the training tasks and in what order? What tools and skills are needed first? What's the first project or task that needs to be mastered? What are the measurable technical aspects of the job? Are there any artistic aspects? And how will you communicate the artistic components? Now, I'd really like to hear what you think about this video. Was it helpful? Was there anything else you think we should cover? All of these are great comments for us so that we can improve our production and make it more effective for you. We're all about helping business owners make the right moves for their business.